someone to occupy a certain office called Office of the Special Prosecutor, I think it then goes beyond just appointing persons who qualify by dint of their, academic qualifications or, experience in practicing law and the years that they have had in the bar. And the other question you ask is, if the Attorney General can be controlled or can be fired and works at the pleasure of the President, then would you really need someone who, for example, indirectly, because we do know, for example, by law, the AG is supposed to nominate the person, the President will have to accept and then transmit it to Parliament to get approval, and then the President would appoint. But the reality we know is that there is no way the AG would have done the nomination without consulting the President. I don't think that if President Akufo-Addo was not comfortable with Kissi Agyebeng, AG, Attorney General Godfrey Dame would have done that. And so I am looking beyond. I think that those talking about age, I don't believe is a critical issue. As someone said, even the President could have been 40. I mean, we had Obama, who was not in the categories of persons you describe as very old, leading the most powerful country and serving as the commander-in-chief of the most powerful armed forces or army in the world. So I think that, for me, is not an issue. If you look at the credentials in terms of Kissi's qualification, masters in law, was called to the bar in 2003. And so the 12-year threshold that the Act provides, he certainly qualifies. I think what is critical is to look at, as perhaps Haruna said, in terms of stature, in terms of reputation, in terms of strength of character. Is he someone who can stand up to the President, to the powerful people in government, and say, look, my office is independent and I'm doing my work independently? And certainly we do know, with the recent developments around the AG's, the Auditor General's department and Mr. Domelego, the Auditor General, we know the extent to which our leaders, or the President for that matter, can go in terms of diluting that whole provision of shall be working without the control and direction of anyone. In the case of Domelego, we saw the extent to which the executive and the President for that matter went to exercise some level of control, some level of direction, even though not direction in terms of how he works, but control in terms of, go on leave, proceed on leave, and it's a directive from me, and so on and so forth. So for me, of course, I know Mr. Kissi Agyebeng. In fact, he's defended me in court before when I was cited for contempt, among other people, on the case involving Anas and the judges and so on. He's a fine person. I think he's a very intelligent and smart guy. But I share in the view that whether or not he is an MPP or CPP is not the matter. I don't expect the MPP at this stage to say they are nominating somebody who is from the NDC. Martin Amidu was unique in so many ways, and certainly was the right person for the job. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. Imagine you were writing a story on this nomination. What will be the headline? Well, that's a difficult one. Perhaps I would say qualified, but with a but to it. I think on paper the experience qualified, but of course you cannot compare Kissi to Martin in terms of experience, in terms of stature. And the other important point is, what is the track record? Okay. Now, Sulemana, let me ask you these three questions for quick answers in a minute or 30 seconds each.